Καλημέρα από την Ελλάδα. Good morning from Greece. My name is Elena Vlachou. I am a EURES advisor, part of the EURES team for 11 years, and I currently work in the National Coordination Office of EURES in Greece. Today, we will present the career possibilities offered by Greece in the context of a brief description of the country, as well as the living and working conditions. First of all, let's start with some basic facts and figures about Greece. Greece is a relatively small country in southeastern Europe, at the southern tip of the Balkan Peninsula, with an area of slightly above 130,000 square kilometers, with a population of around 10 million and a half, according to the latest statistics. The political system is unitary parliamentary republic. The capital city is Athens, Athena. The official language is Greek, and the currency is euro. Let's now move on to some essential information about the geography and the administrative structure of the country. Greece is a mountainous country with the widest coastline in the Mediterranean, around 13,000 kilometers, and an archipelago of more than 3,000 islands. As far as the administrative structure is concerned, Greece is consisted of 7 decentralized administrations, 13 regions, as you can see on the right, and 325 municipalities. Greece is very proud of its historical and cultural heritage, which spans over a period of more than 3,000 years. On this slide, you can see some very basic and important landmarks. The Prince of Lilies from the Palace of Knossos in Crete, the cradle of the Bronze Age Minoan civilization, 15th century BC. From the same era, the mask of Agamemnon or Atreus from the civilization of Mycenae. We move on to the 5th century BC, the Acropolis. You can see the porch of Erechtheion Temple in Athens and the famous Caryatides. The Hellenistic period, after the conquests of Alexander the Great, 4th century BC. After the Roman occupation, we move on to the Byzantine period, which is characterized by the ancient Greek heritage, the Roman legal and administrative tradition, and a deep-rooted sense and spirit of religiousness, as you can see on the icons, and the architecture of the Orthodox churches. Here is a characteristic example of Meteora, 11th and 12th century. And let's move on to contemporary Greece. Greece is a relatively young state, established 2 centuries ago. It still tries to find its identity and balance in the modern world with brave reforms and open-mindedness. Just to take a glimpse at the contemporary art and spirit, now you can see the Sailor Sitting on a Table by Yannis Tsarouchis, a painting of 1980, and the 2 most famous Greek poets, George Seferis and Odysseus Elitis, both winners of Nobel Prizes in 1963 and 1969, respectively. And after this spiritual journey through the ages, let's make a smooth landing on today's situation. We will try to present some very basic figures and facts concerning the society the employment, the labor market, the economy, and education in Greece. The unemployment rate, according to the latest statistics given in June 2024, is 9.6%. It seems high, but you need to take into consideration that after a financial crisis that lasted almost 10 years, immediately followed by the pandemic crisis, Greece has made many efforts and has managed to lower and continuously decreases the unemployment rate. The GDP, 2.1% rate with reference period from the first trimester 2023 to the first trimester 2024. The export activity rate is also 2.1% with reference period from June 2023 to June 2024. It is also important to note that the majority, almost more than 50% of the total population of Greece, live in Attica and Central Macedonia. That means the capital city of Athens and Thessaloniki. Concerning the education in Greece, it is very important to note that the majority of the graduates of the secondary level education usually and normally continue their studies in the third level of education, and there is also a very high percentage of tertiary education attainment. And now let's move on to some facts and figures about labor mobility. It is important to stress that almost 20% of incoming citizens come from EU countries, mainly the Balkans, and the majority of the citizens that come to Greece in order to find a job are quite satisfied from the work conditions they meet. Almost 9 out of 10 declare that they're very satisfied. Let's now move to a very basic question. Which are the financial sectors that flourish in Greece? There are two pillars of the Greek economy: maritime activities and shipping, and tourism. Greece has the largest merchant fleet globally in terms of total gross tonnage, with 251 billion euros in 2015, which represents 9% of GDP. And it is very important to stress that almost 7% of the total national workforce is employed in the sector of maritime activities and shipping, around 300,000 employees, out of which around 16,000 employees are employed in maritime companies in the big ports and especially in the port of Piraeus in Greece. About tourism, Greece, thanks to its strategic place, the climate and culture, is the third top destination in 2019 globally, with 9 billion euros in 2021, 17 million visitors in 2021, and we're currently expecting more than 30 million tourists this year. Apart from the pillars of the Greek economy, there are also other promising financial sectors, namely digital economy, healthcare services, alternative agricultural schemes combined with agro and ecotourism, such as snail farming, mushroom and truffle, aromatic and medicinal plants, and last but not least, technical sector occupations in constructions and industry. So, what are the most wanted occupations right now in the Greek labor market? Starting with the maritime sector, shipbrokers, shipping agents, fleet and crew operators, marine surveyors, marine, mechanical and project engineers, marine service managers. There is also need for communication support and quality assurance specialties, staff in sales and marketing activities. Moving on to healthcare, we need doctors, nurses, and healthcare assistants in general. All kind of specialties concerning the information technology sector are more than welcome in Greece. The industry sector needs electrical and mechanical engineers. All sectors need specialties in logistics and transport in general. In tourism, we need receptionists and customer service, cooks, chefs, staff responsible for catering, barmen, baristas, waiters. And for all sectors and industries, we need helpers and also technicians and workers in constructions and building maintenance, such as electricians, plumbers, and so on. Now let's move on to the most wanted skills in Greece. A Greek employer needs a candidate who is usually motivated, welcoming, friendly and polite, willing and helpful, with team spirit and ability to cooperate and work in team projects. Especially for maritime, tourism and industry sector, it is very important to be able to work in shifts and under stress sometimes, given the circumstances which have to do with the 24-hour operation of industries, the high season in tourism, as well as other factors. For customer service, we need employees that are gifted with communication skills, and especially for larger enterprises with employees from many countries, it is very important to be able to work in a multicultural environment. And now we're going to move on to the working and living conditions in Greece, starting by salary and wages. Since April 1st, 2024, for the employee status, the minimum salary is 830 euros gross. And for the worker status, the minimum salary is 37 euros and 7 cents gross per day. It is very important to note that these salaries and the minimum salaries are just the basis. Usually and normally, the salaries are quite higher because they depend on the academic background, on the previous work experience, on the expertise, and the working conditions, namely working hours, shifts, overtime, as well as employment on Sundays and public holidays. On average, a graduate in Greece, a young graduate in Greece without experience, can usually expect a salary of around 1,000 up to 1,200 euros gross, depending on the type of financial factor or industry. It is also important to say that in many sectors, for example in tourism sector, apply collective agreements, while the negotiation between the employer and the potential employee always prevails according to the Greek labor law when the terms of the negotiation are in favor of the employee. About the living cost now, let's start with the accommodation. If you come to Greece and you're looking for a job and you need to rent a house, a flat or a small room, then for rented accommodation, the price you need to expect for a two-bedroom flat is around 400 up to 500 euros per month. For a house, around 500 to 700 euros. But if you are satisfied with a small room or a small studio, The price is quite lower, around 300 euros per month, and it could be even less than that. In general, the prices depend on the region, the age, the condition, the equipment, and other factors concerning the situation and the location of the rented accommodation. About the living cost and the prices, you can see on this pricing list the prices of some very basic and essential services and products in Greece. You will notice that in some cases, Greece seems to be more expensive than other European countries. But in general, we have to say that if we take into consideration the European average, Greece is not a very expensive country. And now let's move on to the core of today's presentation. How to apply for a job, first of all. Which are the main agents? First of all, DIPA, the Hellenic Public Employment Service. DIPA, apart from its headquarters, currently operates 116 employment offices all over Greece, which manage the National Registry of Unemployment and provide counseling, mentoring, and other employment services. Of course, there is the EURES network, the formal European network of public employment services, through which mobility is encouraged and assisted. Right now, in Greece, the National Coordination Office, apart from the NCO staff in the headquarters, consists of 12 EURES advisors and 2 assistant EURES advisors who are work counselors working in the local employment offices of DIPA all over Greece. And if you're interested in communicating with a EURES advisor, there are many channels of communications: by phone, by email, by EURES chat, which is available every Friday from 11 to 13 Central European Time. And there's also another possibility offered by DIPA. It's My DIPA EURES Live, which offers the opportunity to a job seeker to make an appointment for a teleconference with a EURES advisor every Friday from 7 to 12 Central European Time on a digital platform offered by DIPA. Of course, you should keep in mind that this is only available for job seekers who have credentials with the Greek tax authorities. But once you establish a contact with a EURES advisor from Greece, you can always, after the first telephone calls and emails, you can always arrange for a personal teleconference. And of course, there are private employment agencies certified by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, which provide similar quality services. What are the main tips when you apply for a job in Greece? Usually, a standard type Europass CV with a photograph included is quite efficient. Your CV must be short and to the point. It should not in any case be longer than 2 pages. Your CV must be written in English or the language demanded by the job offer, but it's usually English. And don't forget to mention any previous work experiences. And last but not least, what is the checklist before moving to Greece? First of all, get your documents ready. A valid passport is mandatory for living and working in Greece. Visa is not required for EU citizens. International driving license is also not required for countries listed in the Vienna Convention. Plus, don't forget to issue a European health insurance card before you leave your country. It is a free card that provides you with access to medically necessary state-provided healthcare during temporary stay in any of the 27 EU countries, plus Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, under the same conditions and at the same cost, which in some cases is absolutely free, as people insured in that country. That was all from us for now. Thank you very much for your attention. If you need any further information or queries, please don't hesitate to contact and send us an email to the address euresgreece@dipa.gov.gr. Σας περιμένουμε στην Ελλάδα. We're waiting for you in Greece. Bye bye.